Good afternoon, Americans. This is your favorite alien sitting in for Paul Harvey this afternoon on Tuesday, June 15th, 2021. Stand by for the rest of the story. Well, Mr. Harvey would be elated that I'm doing this story, the rest of the story, and it's on Ted. He did a story on Ted back in the 1960s. Now, Ted was a graduate of Dartmouth University, and he was walking the streets of New York City in 1937, and he wasn't at all doing good. He had just come out of his 27th straight rejection of his manuscript. And some, when they got rejected, were polite, others were downright distasteful to him. And he was walking down a street in New York City in the publishing district of New York City at the time, 1937. And all he could think of was the manuscript he had in his under his left arm. And he was thinking that he was going to go home and he was going to have a celebration and burn the manuscript. Because poor Ted, he went to the top 27 publishers in New York City, and all of them turned him down, and some of them were not nice about it. And that's bad for 1937. And then, as he's contemplating burning his manuscript, he heard this voice that said, "Hey, Ted, is that you?" And he looks up and sees a cohort of his from his Dartmouth days. And he says, "Hey, yeah, that's me. What are you doing?" And he says, "Well, I just got to New York City and I just got hired. And you're right on my office. You want to see my new office? I just got hired 3 hours ago." Yeah. So he went up to the office. And unbeknownst to him, it was another publishing company that he had never seen before. It wasn't part of the big companies. And this company was called Vanguard. And it prided itself on taking manuscripts that the other big boys had rejected. So his friend asked him what was he carrying underneath his arm. And he told him it was his manuscript that he was ready to barbecue when he got home. Well, his friend says, "Just a second." And he went up there and talked to his new boss. This new boss came in, talked to Ted, asked if he could glance at his manuscript. And Ted begrudgingly told him yes, because he thought that was going to be rejection number 28. Yeah. But no, the man was the head of Vanguard. And he said, "Oh, interesting. We haven't seen very many of these type of manuscripts before. It's would be very much what Vanguard stands for." So he says, "We got a deal. We'll publish it." And in late 1937, The Streets of Mulberry got published, to a resounding success. And then came other books. The Sneetches, the Lorax, and The Grinch Who Stole Christmas, Green Eggs and Ham. And his status as a author was cemented. For you see, with the green eggs of ham and the Grinch Who Stole Christmas, you know who this is, Theodore Geisel. Although he wrote in his pen name, Dr. Seuss. And yes, Mr. Harvey, if you're upstairs listening to me, today they consider Dr. Seuss racist, especially the streets of Marbury. Why would they want to ban that? Because you see, Americans, this was 1937. The times were different. The views were different. And the wording and the people wrote in those days, whether you wrote for the newspaper or whether you wrote for radio or magazines. The look at the world was different in 1937 than it is in 2021. And those people who are clamoring to get Dr. Seuss not published and out of the mainstream don't understand that your society, you are 2021 with your strange ideas. What you should do is read it to your children and said, this was the early to mid 20th century. And this is the way people looked at the world back then. And this is the way Theodore Geisel looked at the world back then. You have to teach your descendants what the other people that came before them were. Mr. Geisel wasn't prejudiced. He wasn't racist. But therefore, speaking for Mr. Paul Harvey and taking his mantle today, the favorite alien today says, why do you want to label him as a racist when he was a product of his time? Same as you are a product of your time. If you go 100 years from now in 2121, and the people looked at the views that you had here in 2021, they're going to be looking at you like you are looking at Theodore Geisel. And some of them will even say you were stupid in this time period. Sitting in for Paul Harvey, this is your favorite alien. Good day.